The year is 2000. The 996 GT3R dominates the American Le Mans series in the GT class. With a 3.6-litre flat-six engine, it came first in every race of the season bar one. Enter the BMW M3. Though largely unsuccessful in 2000, BMW saw 2001 as a chance for domination. What resulted? A 440 horsepower V8. Multiple class wins, and ultimately, controversy. By the E46 generation, the BMW M3 already had a great deal of racing pedigree behind it. This dates back to the E21, which despite not having an M3 variant, did see some success in various motorsports, competing in touring car racing, rally, and the thoroughly interesting Group 5 racing series with the monstrous 320 Group 5 silhouette race car. Following that, the next generation 3 series, the E30, was released in 1982 and the first M3 in 1986. This is the car that really established the M3's legacy, competing in both rally and famously in various touring car championships and going on to be the most successful DTM car in history, especially with the subsequent Evo 1 and 2 variants. The E30's replacement, the E36, was unveiled in 1990 and the M3 version in 1992. Once again, the car found success internationally in many racing series, and was notably used by the Prototype Technology Group in the American Le Mans series. Now remember this because it's part of the syllabus and it will be on the exam. Interestingly, there also exist 15 units of the E36 dubbed the M3R, which was an Australian homologation model and the most powerful E36 ever made.
Australia, yeah bruh.
All this is to say that prior to the E46, the M3 already had a significant presence in motorsport, and this brings us back to the year 2000, the 996 911, and the American Le Mans Series, or ALMS. The ALMS was established 1 year prior in 1999 and featured 3 classes of racing: LMP, GTS, and GT. It's important to say that the M3 actually won the 1999 ALMS season. But there's 2 things to note about this. First off, the winning car was the aforementioned E36, and second, the team who won wasn't even BMW Motorsport. Instead, the M3 was used by Prototype Technology Group, or PTG for short. PTG had been racing the E36 M3 since 1995 as part of a deal with BMW Motorsport North America, and finding moderate success. The inaugural 1999 season of the ALMS Championship would present more difficulties though, especially with the use of the Porsche 993 911 with its 3.8-litre engine in the Carrera RS trim. There were obviously other competitors though. Interestingly enough, 3 teams used the newer 996 GT3 as well as the 993 GT2, though the GT2 was more prevalent in the GTS division. Despite PTG and their M3 taking first place in 1999, the 2000 season would put a stop to the M3's success in the American Le Mans series. 2000 saw the introduction of 2 new generations of car in the GT class, these being the widespread adoption of the newer 996 911 GT3R amongst every team bar one, that team being PTG, who had switched to the newer E46 platform. The newer 996 had a smaller displacement 3.6-litre engine compared to the earlier 993, but this didn't hinder its success. In fact, during the 2000 ALMS season, the 996 won every single race except for the one at Laguna Seca, with victory taken by the PTG E46. It's also important to note that at this time, the E46 still used a 3.2-litre inline 6, the same displacement as the older E36 and as used in the M3, with both engines based on the S50. The E46 used the P54B32 engine, but it still fell behind the 996 in regard to performance.
Ooh, that's kind of small.
To quell this issue, the engineers at BMW Motorsport determined that a larger 8-cylinder engine would be more suitable for next year's ALMS season in 2001. So that's just what they made. What resulted was the creation of the 440 horsepower, naturally aspirated, dual overhead cam, flat plane, dry sump P60B40 V8.
Impressive.
This, combined with the straight cut gearbox and short side exit exhausts, came together to form that most tremendous and recognizable sound. The V8 was then placed into a minorly updated body, featuring a redesigned wing, hood or bonnet with altered intakes to suit the newer engine, and other changes to the fender flares and front bumper. The car also made extensive use of components in its construction, making it significantly lighter. But there existed a problem. The ALMS rules stated that any car entering the GT class needed 10 production models to be manufactured and sold on 2 different continents. For the 996 and previous P54 using E46, this was no issue as the road versions of both cars had similar enough engines to their racing counterparts. However, the use of the new P60 V8 meant that it was too far from the existing M3, necessitating the creation of 10 road-going GTRs dubbed the M3 Strassen version or street version. The street cars resemble the existing E46 M3 much closer than the GTR, but internally were quite different, with parts such as the elongated front and rear bumpers, a lot of carbon fiber parts, and a detuned version of the P60B40, reducing it to 350 horsepower and 365 Nm of torque. The 10 cars produced and offered to the public, we shall return to this later, were sold at a price of €250,000 a unit, or in today's money, roughly 12.6 billion Vietnamese dong. Despite being road legal, they weren't mass-produced cars, and instead it could be argued that they were much closer to prototype sports cars, though I'm certain that there's no controversy or any other resistance that might arise from this fact. In the first race of the 2001 season, the E46 maintained its use of the 3.2-litre 6-cylinder engines due to the 4-litre V8 cars not being ready, leading to the PTG No. 6 and BMW Schnitzer No. 42 cars placing 3rd and 5th respectively. Despite seeing the first use of the V8-powered M3, the next race at Sebring yielded similar results, though the positions were reversed as the No. 6 PTG car came 5th and the V8-powered No. 42 BMW Schnitzer car came 3rd, with the No. 10 PTG car unable to finish the race due to engine issues. These early races would also spark somewhat of a rivalry between PTG and BMW Schnitzer that would last until the end of the season. It's also important to say that in 2001, the ALMS shared events with the ELMS, or European Le Mans Series, and that PTG didn't compete in some of these shared races. The second of these shared races, the first being at Sebring, and the third in the ALMS series, saw both BMW Schnitzer cars DNF. Up until this point, it would appear that 2001 would be a repeat of 2000. That was until the fourth race in Jarama in Spain. It was during this race that there would be a turn in favour of the M3, with the BMW Schnitzer cars achieving a 1-2 finish with the number 43 and 42 cars respectively. From this point onwards, the M3 GTR found immense success in the ALMS series and placed first in every single race, with the victory shared between the BMW Schnitzer cars and the PTG cars. In fact, the GTRs took all 3 podium spots at the races in Sonoma and Mosport. The cars often claimed 2 podium spots and even outpaced some of the GTS cars. By the end of the 2001 season, the BMW Schnitzer team had secured 194 points, securing first place in the team's championship and creating a 14-point gap between them and the second place team Alex Job Racing with the 996. PTG rounded off the podium with a final score of 170 and a massive 58-point difference between them and 4th place. The Drivers' Championship was also won by Jörg Müller, who was, you guessed it, driving the M3 GTR. But do you remember the whole V8 and 10 cars produced thing with the M3? Well, let's talk about that.
There are now 4 of these V8-powered BMWs in the field, and that's double the trouble for the Porsche camp. They're still up in arms that this V8-powered BMW can even run in the GT category, but they are...
Porsche and the teams racing the 996 were quite angry about this whole V8 M3 situation. So they went to the ALMS governing body and argued that BMW had essentially produced a prototype sports car designed specifically to compete in the GT class, and not a road car that was adapted for the racetrack. This point had some merit, given that BMW was responding to the 996 with a completely new engine, the likes of which unseen in any previous 3 Series. Adding to this fact was that the street cars had come out after the race model, being revealed at the final ALMS race for 2001 at the Petit Le Mans. Furthermore, the actual number of street cars fell shy of the 10 needed to participate in the ALMS. BMW claimed that 10 were ready and available to buy to the public, but in reality only 6 have ever been produced. The ALMS governing body would ultimately side with Porsche, with the rules being modified in 2002 demanding entrants to have at least 100 road vehicles and 1,000 engines manufactured. As one could imagine, for the highly specialized and expensive GTR, this was not good, as the cars and engines were only supposed to be manufactured in extremely limited quantities. This would ultimately lead to BMW retracting the GTR from the ALMS series, with both not appearing in 2002. Though that is to say that this would not be the end for the GTR. Despite the E46 GTR no longer complying with the ALMS rules, it still found a variety of uses in other racing series. Following a brief hiatus in 2002, it competed in the 24 Hours of Nürburgring from 2003 to 2005 under BMW Motorsport, winning the 2004 and 2005 races. Those are a few of the championships that the V8 M3 took part in, but the 6-cylinder version saw wider usage, being as early as 2002 with Allegra Motorsports in the 2002 ALMS series. PTG made use of new 6-cylinder M3s, notably with their displacement upped to 3.4 litres, to replace the V8 GTRs in the 2004 and 2005 Rolex Sports Car series. These cars would ultimately win the 2004 Driver, Manufacturer and Teams Championship and would take 7 wins in 2005. 2006 brought PTG back to the ALMS with the 3.4 litre 6-cylinder cars, and whilst they didn't win, they did take the podium 3 times. The GTR also marked a turning point in the ALMS, with other teams now challenging Porsche's dominance, and paved the way for cars like the Ferrari F430 GT2, with it taking first place in the GT2 segment of the 2006 ALMS. After 2006 though, the GTR saw much less use, and facing stiffer competition, the E46 started to show its age. But the car would go on to form a legacy outside the racetrack, being the centre for Need for Speed Most Wanted 2005's plot and serving as the main motivator for the player. The idea of focusing the narrative on a singular vehicle combined with the series arguably being at its peak led to immense success and cemented the GTR's reputation with a whole lot more people than it otherwise would have been recognised by. The car also featured in Gran Turismo 4, which very hip reference there, so you know I'm cool. Of the 6 production cars made, 3 have been kept by BMW in their various facilities and are occasionally seen on display, with the other 3 being kept and disassembled by BMW. I'd also like to say that this information is courtesy of the M3 GTR community, which is a big group of people with a vast array of information on the M3 GTR and contact with a former BMW employee who worked on the GTR. The few original racing variants with the P60 are held by various parties. BMW has a few either in storage or museums, with the others held by Schnitzer, BMW of America, and some gone off the face of the earth, most likely either in storage or owned by some random German man. After the E46, the E9X3 series would follow, with the M3 variant featuring the S65 V8. This engine, whilst not based on or really related to the P60 B40, was most likely influenced by the use of the V8 in the GTR. Once more, BMW occasionally has their GTRs on display, such as earlier this year with one painted in the Most Wanted livery. And with that, our story comes to an end. To conclude, I'd like to say Dankeschön for watching this video. I know it took way too long to produce, and to be honest it probably isn't worth the wait, but I'd like to offer my most sincere apologies and thanks to anybody still watching after all this time. I also want to say that the ALMS is fascinating. So many other cool cars like the C5R Corvettes, V12 LMRs, Viper GTSR, and so on. If you want to learn about such automobiles, I guarantee there's a slew of other content creators who can satisfy the all-consuming urge to devour automotive content, and I've linked some below. I'd also like to extend my gratitude to the YouTube channel BJ's Garage, who made an excellent video on the E46 GTR, in which he goes into a lot more depth on specific numbers about the car and also discusses some really interesting history of BMW. His channel has a really unique style too. I'd further recommend his videos on all the E46 engines and all the E36 engines. They are quite well researched and quite well presented. Also, shout out to Polardog and the M3 GTR community, as they have a lot of really good information and were really helpful with some of the technical data that you can see in this video. Once again, thank you very much for watching. If you have any comments, suggestions or corrections, please let me know in the comment section below. And with that, auf Wiedersehen. Oh yeah, well, I use the car to get to work and to get the kids around, and yeah, it's very practical.